lead us. I would like to lead us in a guided meditation on our best self and going home. So if you guys would like to find your space and your comfort zone, however that is, um, and we will start as Tony taught us last week. The bell doesn't work, so I will just kind of make a ding. And we begin by focusing on our breath. In and out. Forgetting the distractions around us. Coming back to our inner refuge. And in your mind's eye, I would like you to begin to imagine your perfect self. What you look like, your attributes, how you would respond to things, your best self, your true nature, the person you've always wished that you could become. And I would like you to take the time and think of how that person would sound when they talk, how that being would move when they walk, the energy that that being would give off. And then I would like you to think of the most beautiful and dreamlike place that you could live. Imagine what that place looks like, what surrounds it. Is it in a forest? Is it in the desert? Are you in the city? The most perfect spot, everything that you've always dreamed of. And you walk up to the door and you knock on the door. And the door opens. And standing in front of you is you, your perfect self, the most beautiful, most elegant, most strong and compassionate you that could ever be. And they're looking right back at you, smiling. And they say, "Welcome home. Welcome home. I've missed you." And they reach out and they embrace you. And all your fears, all your worries, all your concerns, they just fade away with your out breath. And with your in-breath, you breathe in the compassion. and the strength and the joy, the peace, the energy of this being, this person, this you, the best you. They invite you in an overwhelming sense of comfort, of finally arriving, of finally being, of all knowing, of pervading peace comes over you. Welcome home. And this being invites you to sit. And as they're standing in front of you and you're staring back, you realize you're looking in a mirror, that you already are that being. That you already are strong. That you already are compassionate. That you have no fear. You have no worries. You belong. And you are home. And in this space, we're going to sit. Because this is who we are. This is where we belong. This is where we heal. This is where we are whole. Perhaps there's noises or thoughts or emotions in our best being, our Buddha nature, holds them with compassion. Lets them go on their way. And as we end this sit, we recognize that we never have to leave this space. We never have to leave home. Ding! The Buddha says that we must make an island unto ourselves that no flood can overwhelm. When I first read these words, I thought that it meant that I was supposed to alienate myself from everything in life, that I was supposed to not be a part of, that I was supposed to walk away from. And the more that I practiced the Dharma, and the more that I understood what he was saying, the more I've come to a place to understand that as I am, the ability to sit with the things around me and not attach to them and not be taken off course by them, to not be overwhelmed by them, is what he was talking about. Because the island is still a part of the world. The island is still a part of the ocean and of all the other things that are belonging. While I was in prison, I always wanted to go home. That was the goal, was getting home. Being someplace else. Before I was in prison, I looked to my snowboarding to make me feel better. I looked to alcohol and drugs to make me feel better. I looked to violence to make me not feel the pain. I moved a lot. I usually didn't live anywhere for any longer than a year. I moved a lot growing up. I went to 11 different schools before I graduated. I lived in 5 different towns. I didn't know what home was. It was this elusive thing that people would talk about, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a hometown. I didn't have a home team. I didn't have a home to go to. It wasn't safe in my house. It didn't feel like I belonged all the time. And while I was in prison and I was working on my recovery and I was working on change and I was working on growth, I felt like once I got out, I would be home. That I would get to a place that I could create and make this abundant, joyous, peaceful, safe refuge. And then I got out, and there's steps in front of me. There's steps before I can have a building that's my own, or land that's my own, or people that I want to be around, that I choose to be around, rather than people that are placed around me. And I started studying this idea of home. What is home? Is it a place? Is it certain people? Is it a feeling? And then I realized, as I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh talk about meditation and our practice of zazen, that when we sit, we go home. When we sit, we come into ourselves and we recognize what's going on within us. And then when I get off the cushion and I'm back into the world and I'm trying to grasp at things to make me happy, when I'm caught away by relationships, when I'm caught away by jobs, when I'm caught away by political situations, when I'm caught away by suffering that I choose to hold on to, when I'm thrown asunder by joy, when any of those things happen, I run out of my house thinking that I found it. I run out of my heart thinking that I've this is going to be it. And then when I show up at the next doorstep, I realize that it's not my house. I can visit it. I can stay for a little while. But if you've ever lived at somebody else's house, you know that it's not your home. you know that you're living by somebody else's rules. And I also realized that when I can sit within myself, that I can notice that there is peace within me, that when I deal with the things that are within me, and I don't look for outside sources to fix those, to cover them up, to take them away, when I don't try to run from them, I create a refuge that I can never be taken away from me. That when those times come where I'm wondering what to do, when I'm wondering why I'm suffering, I can sit and I can realize that I'm safe. That, as Tony once told me, I am just a breath that is moving. That the rest of this is just an experience. As the Buddha would say, I am an observer. My emotions are not me. My thoughts are not me. My body is not me. I am just observing. I'm already home. We live in a society that tries to push us towards an end goal of consuming and creating and being more than, telling us that we're not enough, telling us that it's not good enough, telling us if we were just over the hill, if we just attained these things, if we were just a little bit better. And in my practice, there's been times where somebody had to point out that when I was sitting, I was using my sitting to escape. I was using my sitting to try to refocus my reality. That I was sitting to try to be better, to change myself. When I was studying the precepts, I kept asking my teacher Joshin, I was asking him, well, how do I get better at this? And he said, well, you don't. I was like, what do you mean I don't? I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be this person over here, my best self. He said, you do that by having compassion with yourself where you are. You do that by recognizing that's already you. And then it will actualize itself. It sounds really simple, but it's a lot harder. I found it's a lot more difficult to sit with the things that I want to change than it is to actually be with them, to actually not know, to actually have loving compassion towards the things that I don't want. And using that suffering as a tool for growth, as an understanding of that's where I am, as an understanding is that's where somebody else is, as a tool to not other people, but to recognize that they belong just like I belong. And it's been a long, long road. But the wonderful thing about this path is that every time I take a step in mindfulness, it actualizes within me. Every time I see somebody else take a step on this path, it actualizes within them. And we get closer and closer to realizing that we're already there, that we're already home, that this is already the space. We just have to actualize it. We just have to realize it. Suzuki Roshi said that we should, I believe it was Suzuki Roshi or it was Dogen. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, it was Suzuki Roshi who said that we should leave the front door and we can leave the back door open to our home. Let our thoughts and our emotions come in and out. But that doesn't mean we have to invite them to stay for tea. And when I was thinking about this, when I was contemplating about this, I was like, well, don't I have to have compassion for everything? Don't I have to sit with it and hold it and recognize it and morph it into something different? But the wonderful thing about compassion is true compassion is loving things for as they are, for letting them be what they truly are. Emotion of sadness doesn't have to be changed into happiness. It can be held as sadness. It can be looked at. It can be studied, and it can be let go as sadness. And in that suffering, in that sadness, in that space, I can have happiness for being able to experience that. I can have wisdom for what caused that sadness. I can have empathy to understand what other people are being sad about. If I try to hold on to happiness forever, all that brings is suffering because it goes just like everything else comes and goes. It's funny, I was talking to a friend the other day because I've been lucky enough to be able to contact and get in touch with some people from my past. And I thought that they had abandoned me. I thought that I had done enough and been bad enough of a person that they wanted nothing to do with me. And so I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt ostracized. But I recognized and I took the guilt and blame upon myself, saying that they wouldn't have done that had I not been. And rather than looking at it as a behavior, I took it on as a human being. I took it on as who I was. And these people that I've been able to contact with have told me the complete opposite. They told me that they loved me. They told me that they're happy that I have changed, that they're glad to have their friend back. They're glad that I've made these steps. And not only has it been a wonderful thing to connect with them and reconnect with them, but it's been an amazing thing to be able to use my suffering to be able to see their suffering and offer words of encouragement and support to these people, to help them realize that they're not going to find home anywhere outside of themselves, even though they're doing it. That's what they're seeking. Maybe if I move over here, maybe if I get in a relationship with this person, maybe if I get that job, maybe if I continue to drink, maybe if I continue to use these drugs, maybe I'll find my peace then. And I've told them that I was more at home and I found more peace living in a cell than I had ever found on the street. Not that I want to go back to a cell. I do not want to go back to a cell. But the idea of home and that peace isn't isn't something that is attainable from outside. It's inside. And the practice of sitting meditation is that space that allows us to go within ourselves and find that refuge. When we do walking meditation, is that space to realize that the trees, that the grass, that the ground, that the air we breathe, that the space we're in is our home. This world is our home. We don't need any more. Sometimes it's scary to go with inside because we're dealing with a lot of pain. I know for myself, my addiction was the cause of me not wanting to deal with who I was inside. I didn't want to face the reality of the things that I'd done and the feelings that I felt and the thoughts that I thought. I didn't want to be with those things. And so I ran. I ran as far as I could. But there's that saying that wherever you go, there you are. And there I was. Every time. Every single time there I was. And it wasn't until I got desperate enough for change that I started sitting with myself and understanding that I had to do it from the inside out. That I had to have compassion for the person that I used to be in those times where I thought that I was doing the best thing to give myself peace, the best thing to give myself joy. I had to have compassion for that person. I can't change that person. I can't change who that person was or the things that that person did. But I can have compassion and understanding. And I can have healing and I can have forgiveness. And when I can have those things for myself, I can see in the next man and in the next woman and the next they, them, and the next sentient being the same struggle. That we're all just trying to be happy. We are all just trying to go home. My goal in life is to not only cause myself no more suffering, but to end the suffering of others, to be a positive ripple in people's lives. And it's not because I think it's some great thing to say, or because I think that other people will love me because of it, but because I know that I have suffered so much at my own hands of the own thoughts of not thinking that I belonged, not thinking that I had value, and not thinking that I had worth, that I know what it feels like to be in that space. I know that hurt people and healed people help heal. And I know that without healing, without showing people that they matter, without showing people that they belong, without showing people that they are home already and they don't need to go anywhere else, that they don't need to look for anything else, that they are enough who they are, that this world is just going to keep suffering. It's an interesting concept when we ask somebody if they're going home. And if we really think about it, a home is a building, usually thought of as a place where we find refuge and solitude, a place that we can make the way that we want it, decorate how we want, that we can redesign. And after a while, it doesn't work for us, so we redesign it again, that we change it so that it fits our moving process in life, because nothing is stationary. Nothing lasts forever. We grow into different needs. And if I look at my life, my own self, my own body, my own heart, and my own mind as a building, as a place of refuge, as a place that I need to change because it doesn't work anymore, it doesn't fit my situation, because things don't change. I mean, things don't stay the same, things change. Then it's, for me, it's been a really, really, really strong and important aspect of my practice. Because honestly, I don't know how to do the world out here right now. It's a little different. It's a little different. In prison, you get used, one gets used to programs and a schedule. You know, we do pretty much the same thing every day. And when it changes, because it changes, we just make a new schedule. But but the personalities and the ideologies and the main rules of prison are pretty simple. And there's not a lot of options. That's one thing that prison taught me, is that when you have to face something, you have to face it. There really isn't a way out. You can't run from it. When I came out here, the first meal I had, they asked me what kind of eggs I wanted. And I just kind of stuttered for a second. And then she started listing off different ways to make eggs. And I was lost. I was like, what? Okay, sure. And then the next question was, what kind of toast? Oh man, there's different kinds of toast. Okay, all right, we're doing this. And as I'm in this place where it's like a step down program, I'm getting ready to move to Truckee, move to a sober living house there. Got a job waiting for me there. I'm gonna go after my dream of being a backcountry ski and snowboard guide. I find myself sometimes thinking about creating a home, about finding happiness once I get there. And then once I start down that rabbit hole, I start becoming impatient, and I start getting stressed, and I start picking up on the little things to get picky about and get annoyed about and get frustrated about. And luckily, I've been practicing for a couple days, and it only takes me a couple hours, maybe a day, before I realize I'm back in that space and, oh, I need to go home. I need to go back to my refuge. I think sometimes it's easy to make this practice a lot more complicated. I think it's easy to make life a lot more complicated. I think it's easy to make love and compassion a lot more complicated. But I think in the end, All we got to do is realize that we're already home. Thank you.